Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Texas A&M a 3-point favorite at home. That number a little not alarming, but like I'd expected all summer that Notre Dame would be tied or maybe be a favorite in this game. They have lost a few players to injury along the offensive line. RIley Leonard, certainly Mike Elko, the coach at Texas A&M, very familiar with RIley Leonard. We have talked about this game, Stephen, all summer long as being a deciding factor for Notre Dame. By the way, they will play Florida State later, and if Notre Dame loses this game and Florida State has a loss, that game's an elimination game potentially later. Texas A&M could set itself up for a very quick return to prominence if they were to win this game at home. I think the matchup favors them in a big way along the line of scrimmage. How do you see this playing out for Texas A&M and Notre Dame in College Station?
I hate to make everything about the playoff before we get started, but it does feel like there is some playoff implications here because of, Notre Dame's preseason top 10. You've got A&M, who could be a kind of a sleeper this year. So there's a lot of like new pieces that I think I'm interested to see. Like I'm interested to see RIley Leonard and Mike Denbrock. How does that duo work together? The familiarity that they have with A&M because, Denbrock's played A&M when he was the LSU offensive coordinator. You got RIley Leonard, who knows Mike Elko's defense very well. So a lot of familiarity in kind of a way between these two teams. But I think just the individual kind of matchups in this game, the biggest, I think, mismatch on paper is going to be that A&M defensive line against the Notre Dame offensive line. I mean, Notre Dame could start a true freshman and a redshirt freshman on the left side of the offensive line, and you're going against a top 10 defensive front for Texas A&M. So defenses for both sides. I think Notre Dame's defense, rock solid, one of the best in the country. I think A&M can get there as well. How do the two quarterbacks perform? You've got two. I think Conner Weigman's going to have a breakout year. We know RIley Leonard's been solid too. So this one to me is how fast can Notre Dame's offensive line kind of get up to speed to match up against that A&M front. And then you also have all of this transition for A&M at home, that advantage in the trenches. I think I like A&M to win this game.
I do too. And I think it's interesting also. Like what it tells us about these teams is different. If Texas A&M loses a close game in this situation, no one's going to really say anything. They're going to say, oh, man, look how much progress they've made in one offseason.
Mm-hmm.
They played a top 10 team very well. Certainly it was at home. Maybe they should have won, but they lost. No one says anything about A&M if they lose a close game. If Notre Dame loses this game close, there's a lot of conversation about Marcus Freeman. And that is he's just got a different situation when you're in year 3 with a playoff caliber team. And by the way, we should have mentioned Xavier Watts earlier. Like he's a guy that is one of those Heisman caliber guys that we should absolutely talk about. They've got a lot of great defensive pieces. I expect a very physical, low scoring game. I do think that the trenches for Elko and the defensive front is going to play a huge role, but I really do think it's the other side that's more interesting, which is Conner Weigman and Colin Klein calling plays. I want to see, like, what is Colin Klein's evolution into the SEC and the Texas A&M? That's not meant to be disrespectful to Kansas State, but you can run the offense that Colin Klein ran as a quarterback at Kansas State and win. And they're going to do that with a bunch of great running backs and Avery Johnson at Kansas State. I don't think you can do that and try to beat Alabama, Georgia, and Texas every year in the SEC. How much does he evolve his offense to a quarterback to allow for down the field throws, pre-snap mode? Like, I trust him to design a great running game. I want to see what it looks like. I like him a lot. I just want to see what it looks like from a balance standpoint. I think that's going to be interesting with Conner Weigman, a talent that he's, an extraordinary talent under center if he's healthy.
I definitely don't think you want Conner Weigman running 100+ times this year if you're Texas A&M. And of course, they already lost Ruben Owens for the season due to injury. But you mentioned that Notre Dame defense, and I think it's going to be a good challenge, obviously a huge challenge for A&M because I've got, I graded out about 4 players as potential All-Americans this season for the defense. I mean, there's just not a ton of glaring concerns here. I think on the other side of the ball, like, and it's not just RIley Leonard, but Notre Dame also brought in some upgrades through the portal at receiver. I mean, Chris Mitchell, Bo Collins, Jaden Harrison. That was a weakness. They needed some more depth. They need some more playmaking ability. Now they've got a good quarterback. They've arguably got a better scheme than they did last year. So to have a matchup of this caliber, and big kudos to both for it being on campus and not a neutral site.
Amen, brother.
And you've got all these new pieces at a high, kind of top 20 showdown. There's a ton of intrigue on Saturday night in College Station.
And here's the thing. If RIley Leonard is healthy, he totally bullied Clemson last year. I mean, just completely bullied them in the opener. if he's fully healthy, sure, he might be running for his life a little bit with some freshmen, some younger players on the offensive line, but he is capable of escaping and making things happen. And if he stays healthy and is out there all the whole time, he's no joke, y'all. Like,
Yeah.
he's not afraid to run your ass over. He does not care. And he's going to have fun doing it. And so he's a really fun player to watch. And I hope he's healthy the whole year. Is it enough to win this game? I think absolutely he's good enough to. And I think Notre Dame's well coached enough. I think Denbrock's going to do a good enough job on offense. But I'll take A&M as well. So I'm sure that A&M fans hate that we both picked the Aggies. so there you go.